Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Southwest Virginia fishing report with Matt Reilly. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good, Marvin. How are you?
I'm just trying to stay out of trouble. Everybody in the Mid-Atlantic looks like they're kind of trying to figure out how much hurricane rain they're going to get, and looks like our heat's broken. What are you seeing in Southwest Virginia?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think it's up in the air with the hurricane track. They're forecasting about an inch here tomorrow of rain this Thursday, and we'll see if we get it. But regardless of whether we get it, we're supposed to, this cold front's been building for a couple of days. Overnight lows last couple of days have been pretty close to 50 degrees, and then next week we're supposed to. We'll probably see the high 30s, is my thinking. They're calling for, like, the weather stations say, like, low 40s, but in the mountains and on the river, it's usually several degrees cooler than that. So things are fixing to slow down and cool down a little bit here. So we'll see what happens, but that's what I'm expecting with the weather.
Yeah, so that basically means probably your trout fishing is going to get better and your smallmouth fishing is going to get harder.
Probably. The last couple of days, smallmouth fishing, we've been slowing way down. We had some pretty consistent and seasonal summertime conditions last week. Had some really good fishing. But as things cool down overnight, and we had a bout with high water over the weekend, and that's still coming down. We've been able to get some fish on top water, particularly in the afternoon. If we don't have heavy clouds like we have the last couple of days, you get a break in the clouds, the sun comes out, bugs start singing, and the water warms up a little bit. Been able to get them to go on top a little bit, but yeah, we've been slowing down quite a bit. Essentially dead drifting and twitching bait fish flies, and where we can, fishing down close to the bottom, crayfish and hellgrammites and that kind of thing. The smallmouth fishing, the trout fishing, temperatures should cool down quite a bit on the creeks. We've still got low water. We really haven't seen all that much local rain lately. And we've had some, and like I said, it's been fairly dry. We've had some windy days, so that some of the creeks are kind of leafed up right now. And these cooler days have kind of zapped the terrestrial fishing a little bit for the time being. So we've been fishing a little more subsurface than we were, a week or two ago. But there's plenty of fish in the creek, and the temperatures should definitely pick things up a little bit.
Got it. And to kind of put a finer point on the smallmouth stuff, Ed sent me a question kind of exactly about this, talking about, fishing warm days after chilly nights. And you kind of talked a little bit earlier about kind of the tactical approach. How do you know when to make that switch? Like, is it one chilly night or is it 2 or 3 chilly nights where you're like, look, we need to start going down even if it's 85 degrees today because things have shifted? What's that kind of decision point for you, when you're guiding folks?
Sure. I mean, the number one thing I think everybody should always do is pay attention to the fish. If you're out there and you're throwing a topwater bug for 3 hours and not getting fish to come up, don't do the same thing all day without results, because if you're expecting fish to come up and eat after fishing half a day without any takes, you're kind of insane. It does get better, again, as the water warms up, sun comes out. But if you're not seeing action, switching things up is important. That said, if particularly this time of year, I sort of know that kind of thing is coming. So I'm paying attention to overnight lows pretty closely, and water temperature fluctuations, like what is the water temp at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. versus, 4 p.m., just to see what that swing looks like. And, water does have a pretty high specific heat, so it doesn't change temperature that rapidly. But, if you get pretty cool overnight, again, if it's 85 degrees during the day and 50 degrees overnight, you're going to see a pretty serious swing. And that, if you get water temperatures going from the, high 70s down to the low 70s or high 60s, it's, even though high 60s might be a good water temperature, say in the springtime, it's all relative. So, it's like in October or September, like what's probably going to happen next week when it's 30 degrees for a couple of days. You're thinking, how are you going to make it through the winter? But in, March, when it's 30 degrees, you might be out in your yard with a t-shirt on. So those fish are used to warm water. When the water temp tanks due to cold nights and that kind of thing, then what I tend to do is if I can help it, and it's a little more difficult from a guiding perspective where you have people, driving home at the end of the day or something like that. I try to start later in the day and focus on the warmest, just like I would in the springtime, focus on the warmest water temp hours of the day, which is usually in the 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock range. And then, again, if I'm not seeing, fish moving around or getting action on flies that I'm fishing, I'm just going to slow way down. And most people, I think, fish too fast for smallmouth anyway, especially, streamer fishing. Everybody wants to throw their fly out there and swim it or strip it back to the boat. But, slow them way down, let them essentially dead drift and sink down to the bottom and then twitch them up a little bit and let them sink and dead drift. And, you may get a fish to take that way, and you'll know how slow they are because, all of a sudden your line gets heavy and you think you're stuck on the bottom and you lift up and there's a fish and you never felt anything or saw anything or what have you. So, slow way down, and you can do it, with topwater bugs too. But as a general rule, like if you throw a topwater bug out there and splat it, let it sit there longer. Give a fish the time he needs, as cold as he is, to move up to it and eat it. Yeah, those are sort of the things that I think about. And, again, pay attention to the fish. If you're not getting fish to come up to the surface, or you're not getting them to chase the fly back to the boat, get down to them and feed them versus trying to make them eat something they're not willing to chase down.
Yeah, got it. And I guess kind of a follow-up question. So, when you have a cold snap and you have a warm day, does that drive the fish to the middle of the water column, or does it push them all the way down to the bottom?
Oh, I think it's a progression. I mean, you can, that's been the case the last couple of days. And in the morning, they've been fairly low in the water column, eating fairly slowly, staying out of the current. And then in the afternoon, when you get the sun to pop out and everything warms up, and, it hasn't been 85 here, and it isn't often that warm this time of year down here anyway, but, mid to high 70s, you can, we've had some pretty consistent topwater action in the afternoon. And part of that, I think, is the food. They've been eating bugs all summer, and if you pay attention to it when you're on the river, pay attention to the cicadas. If it's cloudy and 60 degrees at 9 a.m., 8 a.m., and, you probably won't hear any, but that sun pops out for 10 minutes and you can feel it on your back. They'll start singing pretty soon. And then you'll start seeing damselflies a little before that, flying around and so their food source is kicking around. So you can get fish on top at that point. And, even still, if you can hang with fishing streamers or dredging flies on the bottom and still pick up fish, and they might just become a little more active. But, in the summertime, if I can catch a fish on topwater, I'm going to do it. And I really believe that a lot of the biggest fish of the summer get caught on topwater. So, once I see that window open up and the water starts to warm a little bit, and you kind of know, like, this is going to be my warm water, bright sky window for the day, I'll probably switch over and start throwing on top.
Got it. And, while we're doing all things smallmouth, my understanding is you've had a last minute cancellation. You still got some slots in your smallmouth school that's coming up.
Yeah, we do. We've had some people from out of town that weren't able to make it. So we do have a handful of spots open, and it's coming up at the end of the month. So if you're interested, shoot me an email or text or give me a phone call, and we'll get you set up. We're always looking forward to it, and this year I think it's going to be kind of extra special because I haven't seen anybody really other than clients all year. So I'm looking forward to kind of hanging out safely with a small group of really fishy and really fun people.
Yeah, well, there you go. Absolutely. Just shoot you an email, right?
Yeah. Awesome. However you feel best getting in touch with me.
Yeah, and we'll get to that at the end. And of course, we have to keep the tradition alive, Matt, and you have to tell us what you're writing for the Rural Virginian this week.
Yeah, so it's simple this week, and I probably should have done it a couple weeks ago, but it is, I don't even know what today is. It's sometime in mid-September, and first Saturday in September, the goose, dove, and squirrel seasons open in Virginia, and they're sort of the first hunting seasons of the year, and big traditions for a lot of people. So it's just sort of a general info article about seasons and regulations and that kind of thing. So if you're into it, I hope you're out there having some good days in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I let you hop, why don't you let folks know where they can find you so they can catch the tail end of smallmouth season and get on your calendar for muskie season too?
Yeah, sure. The website is MattReillyFlyFishing.com, and my email and phone number and social media links and all that's on there. So however you feel best reaching out, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, that's great. Well, listen, folks, if you don't get washed out, the fishing should be pretty good, particularly for trout. Get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Matt.
Thanks, Marvin.